I greased up my mic.
What?
I greased up. I'm lubed up and ready to talk.
I don't look. We don't have terms of service here because it's a podcast. We can say whatever we want. But you. I don't want to talk about your mic lube, man.
What's it you about a greasy microphone?
That's like I do a lot of work to make sure my microphone never gets greasy. It's very important that like you're holding up a tube that is labeled super lube with a rainbow, lube. And then underneath it says multi-purpose synthetic grease. I know that one of those purposes is microphones, and I don't want to know what the other purposes are.
We're actually talking about the mechanics and springs inside of the mic arm.
Well, that's a different thing.
That's different. That's where grease goes. Grease does not go on a microphone. I just thought the imagery of a greasy microphone.
Do you use that kind of like grease in it? I use this spray Teflon-y stuff for that kind of lubing.
I've got our typical lubricants. Our typical lubricant array around the house is.
Welcome to Brad and Will Made a Lubecast. I'm
Will. Dude, I've had so. Let me back up. I got this. This is a Rode PSA 1 microphone stand.
Yes, it's a great microphone stand. It is occasionally squeaky.
It's great, except about 2 weeks after I got it, it started grinding internally in a real unpleasant way.
Well, mine never ground. Mine just the springs squeak a little bit.
Anyway, I've had a text file entitled lubes.txt on my desktop for the last 5 months or something.
Yeah, of course. Why not?
Because I was asking people like, hey, what's a good metal on metal lubricant?
Can we?
And I noted some down and I kept worrying like, man, my desktop is going to end up on a stream sometime eventually. And people are going to see lubes.txt and make some assumptions.
Everybody needs it sometime, Brad. It's fine. It's just a part of life. But
so our normal lube kit around the house is just WD-40. And then we have a silicone spray.
So I was going to say, here's the mistake that like 99% of Americans at least use, which is they think, oh, something's squeaking. I should put some WD-40 on it because marketing works in the 80s.
Yes, we were very much a WD-40 household.
Yeah, so that's a terrible thing to do unless you're trying to get water out of a place where there shouldn't be water.
Yeah, like do I understand it's not a lubricant, it's a degreaser, is that right?
WD stands for water displacement, and the 40 is the 40th formulation of it, is my understanding that they made.
Water displacement 40?
Water displacement 40. And the whole point of it is if you get water into a joint where you don't want water and don't want it to rust, then you blast WD-40 in and it'll help the water work its way out faster and then prevent you from like seizing up that joint with rust. But it's absolutely not like a long-term good lubricant for like a squeaky hinge or a squeaky spring or something like that.
So I had come to understand that. And furthermore, even that silicone spray, which I think is good for metal on metal contact.
It's good for a lot of stuff, yeah.
But it's still a liquid, and this is something I am extending over my desk every day, and I didn't want something that's going to drip or run even inside the arm, let alone outside of it.
Mm-hmm.
The Super Lube recommendation came from engineer Nate on our Discord, actually, who, like, as his name implies, he knows his stuff regarding mechanical things.
Well, I'm going to make a new role for Nate. That's Lube Meister, I think is probably what we'll call him.
As a matter of fact, Super Lube had been noted in lubes.txt for some time now. And I finally got around to trawling multiple Ace Hardwares around here until I found a tube. But he said this is his go-to standard grease for just multi-purpose, as it says right there on the label, multi-purpose synthetic grease. It's even food safe.
So I got this stuff for hinges. I wish I could remember what it was called. Maybe if I find it, I'll put it in show notes. But it's probably really bad for the environment because I think it has PTFE in it, the Teflon-y stuff. But I'm going to go and tell you, it comes in a little syringe. You put like 3 drops in the top of the hinge and then kind of pull the hinge up a little bit, put a couple of drops in there, tamp it back down, and then the hinge pin, and boom, never squeaks again.
You're just going to willingly poison the environment so you can have a non-squeaky hinge.
Well, look, the environment was already poisoned by the time it got to my hardware store, and I just picked it up from the hardware store. So I'm using every piece of the environment, Brad.
Is the industrial process is what does the polluting, not the use of it?
I think my understanding is that the mechanism by which we create Teflon and Teflon-like substances has resulted in cows with 6 legs and all sorts of other biological and ecological nightmares in the Pennsylvania regions.
I mean, you could argue though that even if it's the manufacturing process and it's the pollution already happened before it got to you, by buying another tube of it or another bottle or whatever of it, you are promoting further production of it.
You could argue that.
Look, all I know is there is no ethical lubrication under capitalism.
Oh, no. Welcome to Brad and Will Made a Tech Pod. I'm Will.
I'm Brad. Hello. It's Saturday morning. I'm ready to talk tech.
I've got half a cup of coffee, a full glass of water, and I'm ready to go. We got look, this is my favorite kind of episode, Brad.
Yeah.
Potpourri time, baby.
Potpourri. Let's just shake up the shaker a little bit. Get some floral fragrance in here. I've got by comparison, I've got an empty cup of coffee and half a glass of water.
Can we shout out our friend Samet from The Verge, who was on Jeopardy a few weeks ago?
Sure.
Did you see that?
No.
It was awesome. He was on Jeopardy. It was really I have a couple of friends who've been on Jeopardy. It's cool every time. I love seeing friends on Jeopardy.
I didn't see the episode. I should clarify. I saw some chatter about it on Twitter, but I wouldn't, now that I think about it, I wouldn't know off the top of my head how to view Jeopardy at this point. Like, I don't know how I would actually access the program Jeopardy in 2021.
I watched it on Hulu, but I pay for Hulu TV, so sure, that's how I saw it.
Sure. Sorry, go ahead.
When I watch stuff on Hulu, there's ambiguity about the source for it because they don't make it clear what's part of your Hulu TV subscription and what is just like a normal show that's on Hulu.
Yeah, YouTube TV
very frustrating.
Is the same. And yes, I also agree. Like something about the intermingling of network programming, things that are broadcast or even on cable and like internet streams.
Yep.
Does not sit right. It doesn't sit right at all.
YouTube makes it way worse because like I've been watching Taskmaster lately at our friend Casey's recommendation. And are you familiar with the Taskmaster?
I've seen chatter. I don't know much about it.
So you would love Taskmaster because it is perfect. It is a very good like game show.
Okay.
It's British. There's a smarmy Englishman and his stooge, and they provide tasks to a group of like 5 comedians, and the comedians have to figure out how to do weird things like, there'll be a piece of red felt that's 20 feet across and yet there's a hole in the middle and they have one potato and they have to get the potato into the hole without touching the felt.
Okay.
And they all take weird approaches to it. And then the English smarmy guy yells at them for doing it badly and gives them arbitrary ratings. And at the end of the episode, somebody wins and loses and it really doesn't matter who.
It's truly the only dichotomy of television programming is affable British man or irritable British man.
He is an affable, irritable British man. I would enjoy a meal with him, even though it'd probably be roasting. So watch Taskmaster.
I didn't know
the whole thing's on YouTube.
That show, are they all mechanical challenges generally? Physical?
No, sometimes it's like there's one that they do sometimes that's like they have 3 people on a team and one person can see, one person can hear, and one person can talk, but the other 2 can't do the other things. Okay. So they have to do some sort of challenge, like walk across a field with a bucket of water or something. Like it's often mechanical, but there's usually some sort of mind element to it that makes it challenging and difficult. It's almost always an exercise in out of the box thinking, like, and all bets are off. Like sometimes if you have to carry a big rock up a hill, you can try to do it yourself with a wheelbarrow, or you can just call the moving company and be like, hey, can you be here within an hour to move this rock to the top of the hill for me? And then they say yes.
Okay.
Or you can get like bystanders to help, whatever. There's no rules.
No rules, just right.
No rules, just right.
Can't even remember whose slogan that is. I'll look that up. Every time I had seen talk about Taskmaster, I assumed it was just some Marvel thing because of the Marvel character Taskmaster.
I mean, he could be a Marvel supervillain. I don't know. He's British. He's an accent.
Wait, he's the guy in the suit? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, the guy in the suit is the bad guy. Right. Okay. Also the host. I don't know.
Okay.
He's the Taskmaster. So potpourri episode today.
Yeah. Boy, we don't talk about current events every week around here, but there sure are some current events this week.
Well, sometimes Facebook goes down for 5.5 hours. Sometimes the top 10,000 streamers on Twitch's earnings are leaked.
The entirety of Twitch's code base back to the beginning makes its way into public.
Yeah, and sometimes Windows 11 comes out and I install it on my machine at 8 o'clock at night on a Tuesday for no reason at all, other than that I like human suffering.
You might say it was one heck of a week.
Cue music.
Okay.
Okay, so we're gonna start with Facebook. I think this is the big thing.
Yeah, I think it has to. As much as the Twitch thing seems scandalous and kind of salacious with all the amounts of money being flowing around and like security breaches and source code and stuff, like from a historical perspective, the extent to which Facebook went down and the effect it had on the entire internet seems like the thing here.
Facebook went down for the line from the movie about the Facebook is Facebook never goes down. It's the thing that separates us from everybody else, or whatever fake Zuckerberg said in the social network.
Social network. I haven't seen that movie since pretty much it came out. I wonder how it holds up.
I really love, I listen to the score from that movie all the time when I'm working.
Did Trent Reznor
quiet time to work? Well, Atticus Ross, but Trent Reznor, yeah.
Interesting. I might have to look that up too. I wouldn't mind seeing it again.
It's worth watching because of how quaint it is, because it was made at a time when they were like just about to cross 1 billion users or something like that. And it was like, you don't make a billion friends without making a few enemies or something like that. And like in a world where they have 3-4 billion people on their services now, it seems positively quaint.
That was the one thing when that movie came out that kind of stuck in my craw a little bit, was it seems maybe a little early to be making this movie, considering the history of this thing has not fully played out yet. It's very current.
Yeah. It was kind of ripped from the headlines.
I was kind of surprised that somebody like Fincher would make that movie when he did, as opposed to, like, say 20 years later. But
well, I mean, he can do Social Network too, and it ends with Zuckerberg just turning into Lex Luthor.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's start with Facebook. It's also weird to me that a Windows can come out and it's the first new Windows in like 5 years, and it's like the 4th tier story.
Yeah.
And like I don't think I saw Windows 11 trend on Twitter. I didn't see nobody obviously waited in line, because you'd be insane to do that now.
I don't know that you can. I have been trying to figure out if you can even just buy a boxed retail copy of Windows 11, and I don't know that you can at the moment.
You think you just buy a number?
I guess you could buy a key. It's unclear, because remember that rollout is being managed in stages.
Mm-hmm.
Like, most eligible devices aren't going to get access to the upgrade until like next spring, I think they're saying.
Well, they're doing the smart thing that they do with the Insider Hub stuff, where like they let the crazy people on the beta branches and the dev branches test stuff first, and then they'll roll it out to people as their configurations are known good.
Yeah,
which is super smart.
And you can freely go download the ISO and just force install it yourself if you want. But But like I don't think there is a boxed Windows 11 product yet, if there ever will be.
I remember when Windows 7 came out, Microsoft brought to Maximum PC the box, like when they were doing the hey, here's the final code, because they usually would bring it over and like they make kind of a big deal about it. And they brought the boxes, those Windows 7 boxes with the weird curve on the side.
I've still got mine. Those were kind of neat.
It was a good box.
I actually don't. I started to say I thought I had the Bill Gates signature Windows Vista, but I don't think that's actually right.
Well, you know what that one's worth. Nothing at all.
Good to know.
Facebook went down for 5 hours starting on, was it Monday morning?
Yes, it was. Feels like
an eternity ago.
It feels like a month ago.
Brad, why did Facebook go down?
Oh boy.
What happened?
Oh boy.
What did they do?
Jeez,
did they get hacked? Did somebody forget to renew their DNS? Facebook.com.
I wasn't expecting you to put the explanation part on me. It was their fault, and they've copped to that.
I mean, I think you have to when you're a service that works for 3 or 4 billion people.
Well, let's maybe talk about what the experience of it going down was like first, or what the effect was as we saw it. Like I woke up on Monday morning.
Yeah.
And I don't do this every single day, but often I will launch the WhatsApp desktop client first thing in the morning, because I have family that is spread around, and that's how we stay in touch.
Uh-huh.
And it wouldn't fully launch, and it threw, and this is a side thing, but I don't understand why it manifested this way. The client wouldn't launch and threw some kind of ffmpeg.exe error.
Oh, weird.
And I have no idea why that's how it errored out, but I assume it has to have been because, WhatsApp was brought down along with Instagram and everything else that Facebook runs.
Huh. So my experience was very similar. I got up and woke up to the internet, and I had earthquake Twitter, because when Facebook goes down, the only thing people want to talk about on Twitter is Facebook going down.
Yes.
That was how I found out that Facebook was down. It didn't really impact me. Otherwise, I use WhatsApp to talk about Ted Lasso with some friends. That's pretty much it for me. Yeah. So it doesn't come up that much.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know that we need to talk about it, because I think everybody had the experience. Like Like the internet was weird for a little while.
Yeah.
If you don't run an ad blocker that blocks the Facebook tracking pixels and scripts that run on everybody's pages, then it probably took your web pages a long ass time to load while the 10-second DNS timeout landed on everything. I think that, the other social networks, Twitter and TikTok and the like, got slow because so many more people were hitting them than normal to see what was going on with Facebook.
Yeah. So Cloudflare beat Facebook to the punch by days, or by maybe a day ish.
I think Facebook. Well, we'll talk about what happened to Facebook and how the hack went and some of the knock-on effects of what happened.
Yeah,
but yeah, I don't think the Facebook people were in a position to post anything to any blogs
at
the time that things were going bad.
That's fair. But Cloudflare put up a long, extensive blog about their experience with this outage. And I think they said we saw a massive surge of traffic to, let's see, they listed out.
It's like Twitter
Signal is another one they mentioned as seeing a big spike at that time.
Sense.
And they pegged the whole outage at being, I think, about 5.5 hours, something like that.
Well, the Facebook portion of it was 5.5 hours, and then WhatsApp and Instagram came back on a little bit later.
Yeah, even Facebook in their bigger postmortem, they admitted like, hey, once we fixed the main problem, we still had to bring things up in stages, which we'll talk about because there's an interesting factoid there.
Yeah. So what happened was they had a routing, as often is the case when it's not malicious actors or like the great Hotmail outage of 2002 or whatever, where Microsoft just forgot to renew hotmail.com. You remember that one? That was good. I can't remember. There was an internet user that was like, I'll pay your domain fees if you can't handle this, Microsoft. I got your $12.
Oh boy.
But they messed up the routing, basically the routing between the DNS. They have how you have a little box on your network that runs DNS for your network?
Mm-hmm.
Facebook has that too, but it's a data center. Oh,
it's not all going through a single edge router.
Look, their pie hole is also a data center. Okay. That's the thing to remember.
Yes.
They have a data center that does DNS queries for the entire network, and it's connected. So a couple of things we learned as a result of this. One is that Facebook and Google, I assume this is a FANG thing probably, but Facebook and Google and the other giant tech companies have backbone networks that are basically private point-to-point fiber connections between their data centers for high-speed traffic.
Like there were several eye-opening things I learned coming out of this thing, and that was one of them because, like, say 20 years ago when you were first really getting onto the internet, backbone was a generic term you heard for like the thing that your ISP and all the other ISPs hook into that's run by like some telecom background company you've never heard of, right? Like it was a generic term for like, this is the highway that everybody is getting onto to send things around. And like the revelation to me that now these tech giants are so big that they have their own internal private backbones was kind of weird.
Well, so I knew that, I understood that already, but I didn't like. Every once in a while, you get to something happens and you understand the scale of how these companies operate a little bit better.
Yeah,
and the idea that they have a massive private network isn't that big a deal, but the idea that they have a data center that's just DNS and routing and stuff is shocking to me.
Yeah.
So DNS, if you don't know, is the protocol. It's one of the old internet services, and it basically turns www. whatever your website, content.town into a series of numbers that represent the computer that serves that website's address on the internet.
Yes, that's a numeric IP address.
Yes.
Or if it's IPv6, it's a god-awful mess of alphanumeric
soup. Yeah. So if you didn't have those DNS servers, in order to go to Google, we'd have to know it's 8.8.6.5 or whatever the address is, and the whole internet would have failed in like 1996, 94 probably. So DNS is really important. There's another protocol called the BGP,
the Border Gateway Protocol. That was the big thing I learned about coming out of this that I did not know about, and I feel like a little fundamental puzzle piece has fallen into place in my understanding of the internet.
Well, so this is a thing that like network ops have to know, and normal people don't ever think about.
Right.
It's firmly.
Yeah, like I understand DNS very well. Or not very well, not professionally, but as a layman, like I run a caching DNS server on my router. Like I have a basic understanding of how that stuff works.
Yeah,
but
Deez network servers is what it stands for.
Man, I had just gone into this thinking like, well, I'll just call this episode One Heck of a Week. But hang on, I have to write that down. That's
so
okay.
Okay,
what were we even talking about? Hang on.
BGP connects all the networks. It tells the DNS servers how to find each other.
Yeah, so I have always maybe the coolest thing to me about the internet is its utterly decentralized nature.
Yeah,
like I've always thought that was amazing that there is no central authority that runs the internet. We've talked about the ARPANET before, and we should probably just do that episode at some point. But like, I don't know if it's actually true or not. But the thing I've always heard about why the internet is designed the way it is.
Yeah, nuclear
because
strikes.
Yes, they wanted a telecommunications system that could survive multiple nuclear strikes and still continue to function, and that's why the internet has no centralization.
Well, because if you remember when the ARPANET stuff happened, like the way phone network worked was that there were a bunch of people sitting in a room in New York and another one in LA and some in Chicago, and they were literally pulling one wire out of a socket and connecting it into another one to route a long distance phone call. Right.
Yeah. Right.
So
if you hit those three spots, then
bad things,
bad news for the phone network. So it's kind of weird. Like it wasn't a week or three ago that I was thinking about the internet in the shower,
as one does,
which is where I do all my best thinking about the internet. But like, so, there's nothing in the middle of the internet routing everything, right? It all happens in a distributed fashion.
Well, ICANN and DNS is the authoritative here's what everything's called
for assigning things out. Yeah, but I mean day-to-day operations that you can take huge chunks down and most of it will still go. Anyway, the thing that hit me when I was musing in the shower was like, I know what DNS does. I know how packets get from A to B. I don't know what tells them how to get there. Like, what is the thing telling packets this is your best route? This is like, packets aren't smart. They can't find their own way there. Like, what is it that's directing this traffic? And that's what BGP does.
Yeah. See, I always assumed it was like the IP addresses just got peeled off like an onion, and like you'd go from 192.168.1.1, which is not unaddressable, but anyway, to 196 to the .1 to the .1.1 and just keep going up and then go back down. But that doesn't work because then there's 256 machines on the internet that route all the traffic, right, and that's going to break down.
I think what you're really saying is I think we assumed it was just magic.
Yeah, magic.
Somehow they were finding their way there.
The elves were doing it, Brad.
The cursory understanding, like we haven't gotten too deep into this, but my basic understanding of Border Gateway Protocol is that it essentially stores efficient routes from place to place. Like it's kind of a, network engineers could correct me, but it almost seems like a cache. It almost seems like a cache of viable routes for packets to be like, here's your fastest route to get there. Here's your second fastest route.
And they talk to each other too. Right. So if you have a good route, if you and I are both routers, then we'll share notes on what the other good routes that we found are. It's like Yelp, but for network traffic.
Yeah. And so I guess the endpoint nodes in a BGP context are called autonomous systems, ASs. And
I'm afraid to talk about this too specifically.
Yeah,
we're going to yell at the network ops in the Discord.
I read the Cloudflare explainer on this, but I guess an autonomous system is essentially any like kind of set of networking addresses that has a unified routing kind of scheme. Those, according to them, like that's ISPs, corporations, universities, government agencies, scientific institutions, like entities like that would have kind of self-contained networking going on. It's not new. I guess they defined the protocol in the 80s and it's been in use widely on the internet since 94. So it's like always been there. I just somehow never knew about it.
Yeah. So Facebook took their DNS data center offline, and they took it off more offline than they intended to, I believe, is what their postmortem post said.
Yeah.
And then that had some knock-on effects that made it really hard to fix the error. So normally if there's a DNS error, you just log back into your DNS server and you update the tables and then hit the button and wait for the changes to propagate back out. In their case, once their DNS servers were offline, all of their internal tools that let them change DNS routes and BGP stuff were offline, because this is not in the post. This is reported anecdotally, so I don't know if it's true or not, but I want to believe, because Facebook ties everything into Facebook, including your employee access to buildings and like crypto ability to log in and stuff like that. They weren't able to get into the actual buildings.
Yes,
including the data centers.
That was the word going around mid-Monday.
I think people also said that there were some COVID protocols that meant that there aren't actually people on site in places that maybe there would normally be people on site. So that made it more challenging.
Yeah.
And I had heard, I don't know if this is true, that there were bolt cutters involved in getting into either the buildings or the racks. Like they had to get a physical key for the data center, and that then they had to cut into the racks with angle grinders or something.
That's serious.
To get to the machines that they needed to.
I'm picturing somebody in hazmat suits now in a data center with like a circular saw, just like sawing into a giant rack.
Look, I want to see
sparks flying everywhere.
I want to see somebody with like a keyboard and mouse and monitor, like 5 people standing around this rack, 1 person holding a monitor and 2 more holding the keyboard and mouse while the person's typing furiously.
Frantically.
You gotta get it back online. Zuckerberg's gonna eat my liver.
Yeah. One of the things they did cop to in Facebook's own postmortem is that they say essentially like they've hardened these systems from illicit access so much that like it makes it harder for legitimate access to take place. Like I'm sure the COVID stuff may have contributed, but like I am tempted to take them at their word on that like they have tried to they've made it so hard to access these fundamental systems generally that it's harder for even them to get to them in an emergency.
Well, and like the data center thing, if there aren't people sitting in the data centers 24/7 right now, because they're probably probably mostly run themselves at this point. They don't obviously run themselves, but like the things that humans have to do, it's not like you need somebody to go in there and hit the button on the server to restart it every once in a while. Like if there's nobody on the inside to open the door from the inside, then and your key fob stops working, how do you get into a building that's a digital access? Nobody has a physical key anymore. Yeah. So the Cloudflare. So there were 2 interesting things. One is the spin back up.
Yeah.
Facebook said that they saw tens of megawatts at data centers reduction in power use.
Yeah.
Which is terrifying.
That's go on. Is it terrifying just to know that they are using tens of megawatts in at all? Okay, in a single facility.
I mean, I knew that they were using tens of megawatts, but also I hadn't really thought about it. And like, what the fuck are we using all this power for? It's to basically make some shit so that people can serve ads and make a bunch of money. And also spread racism freely. Yeah, Facebook's NFTs, man. That's what I'm saying. Facebook and crypto are identical. What's the moral imperative for Facebook? I have bad news about the state of the world and where global civilization is going. Okay. Let's not be bummers today. The other thing is the overall... let's see. Well, okay. The good thing from the Cloudflare article. Anytime something times out and it takes 10 seconds. This is why 10-second timeouts. That's the DNS timeout, which I hadn't really put together before. Mm-hmm. But if you try to look for something and it times out after 10 seconds instead of 2 or 3 or 50 milliseconds or whatever. Yeah. Look at DNS. Yeah. It's a good tip. That was an interesting line from this Cloudflare blog. The 10-second DNS timeout limit is well known amongst engineers. I was like, right, it is. I had never thought about it that way before. Yeah. Also, it's always DNS. It is often. Have you seen? I assume it gets posted so much in the network channel on our Discord. The haiku, the DNS haiku. No, what's the DNS haiku? I don't want to screw it up. Hang on, it's pinned in that channel. That's how common. It's not DNS. There's no way it's DNS. It was DNS. It's the network engineer's creed. I want to know more about the storm drills that Facebook uses and big companies use for major system failures. Like they talked about in the Facebook post a little bit, because they knew then once things were down, the experience they've had running these drills where they take things offline intentionally gave them the confidence to know how to turn it back on, which is interesting. Like anytime you have systematic hardness built into something, I think is interesting and neat. Yeah. So just to expand on that 10 megawatt or tens of megawatts comment, the full quote about why they had to bring things back up in stages and couldn't just flip a switch and turn everything back on. Individual data centers were reporting dips in power usage in the range of tens of megawatts. And suddenly reversing such a dip in power consumption could put everything from electrical systems to caches at risk. Yeah, just to be clear, from reading Maggie Kurth-Baker's amazing book, When the Lights, about the power grid a few years ago, and I can't remember what it's called off the top. I think it's When the Lights Go Out, but it's something like that. Anyway, if you want to turn on something that uses tens of megawatts of power at once, you have to call the phone company and have a conversation with them about like what they're going to spin up to supply that demand, because it's not like there's tens of megawatts of slack in the power grid at any given moment. They have to pour more coal in the hoppers or pull a couple of rods out of the nuclear power plant so it gets a little steamier to make that happen. Yeah. Somebody goes out there and spins some windmills. Yeah. yeah, like the idea that they could sag out power on the whole thing, or B, they could bring the power grid down by turning Facebook back on. Like, terrifying.
Yeah.
Because that also means, just to be clear, that means that a bad actor at Facebook, say if Zuckerberg does, we joke about Zuckerberg being Lex Luthor a lot, but that means that Zuckerberg has the power. It's not inside his fiduciary responsibility to Facebook shareholders, but Zuckerberg does have the power to bring down the power grid wherever the data centers live.
If he wants to say fuck the board and just go completely.
Yeah, if he wants to go rogue and send us back to the Stone Age, he'd stop making money at that point because with no ads. But something to think about.
Yes, that is a frightening amount of power to have here.
With great power comes great responsibility. I think
it sure was. It sure was an eye-opening experience in terms of seeing how much influence one company has on the entire global telecommunications infrastructure.
I do love how vanilla you pulled it out in the notes, but during one of these routine maintenance jobs, a command was issued with the intention to assess the availability of global backbone capacity, which unintentionally took down all the connections in our backbone network, effectively disconnecting Facebook data centers globally. Our systems are designed to audit commands like these to prevent mistakes like this, but a bug in the audit tool prevented it from properly stopping the command.
Yeah.
Most expensive bug ever.
So yeah, like the last thing I wrote in the notes here, do you think anyone got fired over this?
They were losing, I think, $37,000 worth of revenue a minute.
Oh, that got quantified down. Because that was the other question I wrote after this was, did anyone join the $1 million or $1 billion club? Because we talked about that before. The $1 million club is basically the idea of causing an error, a stoppage in production in your job that loses $1 million or more in revenue. So are you doing the math?
I'm doing the math right now. So it's 1,440 minutes in a day times 35,000.
I think it was.
It's only $50 million. This is a cheapo.
Okay.
I don't know if there's $1 billion bug at this point. I don't think anybody's told us about one of those yet. But
it could be the well, I don't know. It's less a bug and more a consequence of the design. But the what's the year the Unix time issue in
2035 or whatever?
I think it's 2038.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
That's not a problem. I'll be retired by then. It's fine.
The year 2038 problem could be that, because I think it's way worse than the Y2K bug, is my understanding.
We probably spent collectively $1 billion fixing Y2K stuff, would be my guess, in 1998, 99.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody got fired over this.
Really?
Because if somebody got fired, if there was really a bug in the auditing code, it would be firing somebody who wrote a bug in software that then tens of people probably reviewed and nobody caught.
That was exactly what I was thinking, was like a bug in software is not just the person who wrote the bug's responsibility. There are supposed to be a lot of fail safes to catch stuff like that.
And like I want to believe, and please correct me when I'm wrong, but I want to believe that this is even an expensive mistake, even a $50 million mistake, you don't sack people for making that kind of mistake, because ultimately there's a failure in your infrastructure and your processes and your auditing code and all the other things that you do to prevent these kinds of outages from happening. Honestly, the biggest takeaway for me on this is probably a bad idea to run a bunch of scripts on somebody else's domain on every website on the internet. Like, another argument in favor of blocking Facebook scripts and tracking pixels, because that almost brought the whole internet down. Like not being able to, every web page on the internet suddenly not being able to load code that's in the header from Facebook almost jacked up the whole thing.
Yeah, that sucks. I mean, you can get into the ethical, considerations about blocking ads, but blocking the trackers embedded in damn near every page out there these days is maybe a little more defensible in light of something like this.
Any ethical argument about not letting a company I don't like run code on my computer.
Yeah.
The other thing that was interesting to me about this is, like, I knew conceptually how important WhatsApp is to pretty much everywhere but the United States and China. But like, WhatsApp has between 3 and 4 billion users.
Yeah, man.
When WhatsApp went down, they essentially lost text and in many cases voice service.
I had wondered if that was still the case, because I know back when Facebook paid $19 billion for WhatsApp, I know that it essentially was text messaging for large parts of the world, but I didn't know if that was still the case or if other competitors had bitten into that.
The voice space has grown in that time, is my understanding. So like they've continued to grow. So Yeah, like it's bad enough that Facebook went down, a thing that a lot of people use to share racist memes with each other, but like, and I guess pictures of their kids, whatever.
And as you pointed out on Twitter, nobody could eat a meal on Instagram for several hours.
I was really disappointed that that tweet didn't go. I thought that one was really funny. But yeah, the text outage for WhatsApp users is probably the biggest actual. Like I wouldn't be surprised if people died because they couldn't communicate with each other in important stuff.
Oh boy,
anyway,
that's grim.
Yeah, bummer.
Yeah,
that's 7 billion people. People die all the time. Right?
Maybe put less power into the hands of a single corporation.
That's probably not a bad idea.
What if, for example, those businesses were separated from each other in a regulatory fashion?
Huh? You mean like you turn like one company gets the feed and one company gets the photo sharing and one company gets the food pictures and one company gets the baby pictures.
So, hey, yeah. Speaking of baby, remember the baby bells?
Yeah,
it's time. Maybe it's time for baby books.
I mean, the bad thing about the baby bells is haven't they all reconsolidated at this point?
Yes. Have you ever seen that infographic that somebody made that has gone around that is just a flow chart of like, here's how Bell was broken up?
It's basically the story threads from Mass Effect. It like gets wide, it widens, and then it crunches back down to 3 endings.
It's so depressing, man. It's like, yeah, here's how they broke up Bell, and here's how all the intermediaries it's like the Blob.
Didn't that happen when Reagan was president?
Or it's like the T-1000. It's like all the blobs get split up, but they'll always find their way back to recombine. When did that happen, actually?
It was the late 70s or early 80s.
When was Bell broken up? I cannot imagine it happened under Reagan. It did?
He might have really hated phone companies.
Yeah, January 8th, 1982. Wow.
It might have already been in place. Moving before.
Something like that. It takes years to get rolling, I'm sure.
Different topic for another day.
Yeah, well, yeah. Also, antitrust doesn't exist anymore.
Can we talk about Twitch.tv?
I mean, if we have to.
As one of the top 10,000 streamers on Twitch.tv, I feel personally affected by this one.
You have a learned perspective on this breach.
Yeah, the thing I want to see, I still haven't. Let me see if I've gotten an email from Twitch about this yet. I don't think I have. So Twitch, there was a Twitch hack this week. In case you're not on the Twitches. I've not gotten an email. I've gotten one email from them, which we'll get to in a little bit. But somebody leaked all of Twitch's source code, pretty much, including like commit comments and everything, like who committed what code to what branch and all that. Like back to the early days,
all the way back.
Like, does that mean the beginning, like Twitch.tv, or Justin? Like, is there Justin TV code in here? You think
that's possible? That's entirely possible.
They leaked creator payments, like all the payouts, all the money people made from Twitch proper, from August 2019 to October 2021. That was great. The code for the mobile, desktop, and console Twitch clients. A bunch of proprietary internal SDKs and AWS services that are only used by Twitch. All the other crap that Twitch owns, like IGDB and CurseForge and all that. The Steam competitor that they didn't release. I thought they released a Steam competitor. Didn't they have a game sales thing that was up for like 3 months and then disappeared?
That was Discord.
No. Twitch did one too.
Are you sure?
I thought so.
Discord was the one that very conspicuously launched a game store and then shut it down after like less than a year.
I remember that too. Yeah.
Twitch gives away free games through the sort of, what do they call it? Prime
Gaming.
Yeah, like, so you get free games through that. I think that's all they've done.
Okay. I thought there was a way to buy games on Twitch for a little bit.
I don't think
anyway,
so. Vapor. Did you mention that it was codenamed Vapor?
I mean, look, I think the people who were working on it knew exactly how it was going to end up.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking about the right way to say this that I won't get people in trouble. I feel like from talking to people who worked at Amazon in the past, that a lot of things come down from on high and are like, hey, we should go try to compete with Steam. And then all the people that understand what Steam does and how Steam works and how entrenched Steam is are like, this is okay. Well, we're going to need like $5 billion. And they're like, well, here's 30 million. Go to it. You get 10 people for 2 years.
If you're telling me that Amazon is a company that functions on mercurial fiat, some executive has an idea and just waves their hands around and then it creates a whole new division of the company. I fully believe that.
I'd say there's probably data behind it too. They're like, look, we have data. Steam is making a lot of money. Look at all this money they're making. Look at all these knives Gabe has.
That's money that we could be making. That's another trip to space.
Yes. We could take William Shatner to space twice now.
Yeah.
Anyway, and the red teaming tools that they used internally to have staff pretend to be hackers trying to maliciously attack Twitch services. So,
man, Facebook was like somewhat forthcoming, I feel like, about their errors.
I don't think Twitch knows what the problem is yet.
This Twitch statement. We have learned that some data was exposed to the internet due to an error in a Twitch server configuration change. That's all they said.
Wow.
That was the entirety of their statement around this leak.
So a server configuration change. Let's see now, like there's a good way to disclose a hack and there's a bad way to disclose a hack. The good way is to figure out what the problem was and then fix the hole and then say, okay, here's what we realized. We had a vulnerability in this. We had this vulnerability in this service, which gave a malicious entity access to our internal tools. And then because instead of doing something like having, passwords on everything that are different, we had fucked up the passwords and they were able to get literally everything on our intranet. Twitch is just saying, hey, we had something went wrong and now we're investigating this. They didn't note this statement doesn't say we resolved the problem. It's the hole is plugged.
Yes. The
statement just says we're working with urgency to investigate this.
Yes.
As a note, as one of the people whose personal information was leaked, they have not notified me via email that my personal information was leaked. They sent me a note 2 days later, I think, that said, hey, we reset all the stream keys out of an abundance of caution. Caution for what? No idea.
Yeah.
If you only look at email, look, realistically, if you're affected by this leak and you're a Twitch streamer and you've streamed between now and when the leak happened, you probably have been told by your chat that your shit is out there.
Yeah.
It was a subject of much conversation this week on my streams.
I bet.
I got to find out how well I was monetizing against literally everyone I've ever met. So that's great. Good to know. But yeah, it was like, I don't know. It's weird. It's weird to have it. On one hand, like, I feel bad for people who do this for a living, who are Twitch streamers. Just to be clear, I am a shade tree for funsies Twitch streamer who was lucky enough to make money. Like I paid for my health insurance for a few years when Foo was going and Twitch was a pretty important chunk of revenue for 2020 when things were bad.
Yeah.
The folks who are so for me, let me think the right way to say this. For me, the Twitch leak is a little bit of a relief because it means I can actually talk about the fact that I'm probably making about $8 an hour when I stream on Twitch. Right.
Okay, sure.
Like I don't do this for money. I do it because I enjoy it. It gives me an excuse to play games. I get to spend that money on computer hardware and streaming shit, which is fun for me. And I can write off my video game and computer purchases as a result. If you are a creator that is in the kind of indeterminate space I like to think of it as the content creator black hole where you're making enough money that you can see this as a real career, but you're not making enough money to actually have it support you and or your family.
Yeah.
It's a real, this is a bad thing. This does not help you. And it was lucky enough for me that it was really clear I was never going to support my family on Twitch earnings.
Yes, sure. The pie chart that's been floating around off the back of this is pretty eye-opening. I don't remember the exact numbers, but it is very much a situation where the top 10% of streamers are making 90% of the money.
Well, but it is a classic long tail business, right? So those top 10% of people are making are probably making 50% of the money would be my guess, because we're only seeing the top 10,000, and the tail of people who are making $600 a month is going to be enormous. It's going to be another 80 or 90,000 people probably. Sure. Because there are 200,000 Twitch affiliates and partners it's some massive number of people. So, there's other things. For me, it's a relief because I can talk about the money and I can say, hey, look, I'm not getting rich playing games on Twitch. I'm doing this for fun.
A vanishingly small number of people are.
Yeah. I think PC Gamer did the math, and they said you had to be in the top 3,000 streamers ish to be making the median US income, which is $67,000.
Okay.
I was in the bottom third or the top 2/3, like right on the edge, and I'm making half that. I was made half that in that same time period. So like it is not. It's good because you can look at this and people say, I mean, sure, you get this a lot too, but people are like, hey, I want to get into streaming. What should I buy? And I'm like, literally buy nothing. Like use your headset microphone and a webcam and maybe get a $20 light from Amazon if you want to look a little bit better. But start out and do it because it's fun and because you enjoy doing this and you want to like hang out with people on the internet. And then if you start making money, spend the first money you get back on this on hardware. But don't go out and spend $3,000 on a Shure SM7 and a fucking $500 mirrorless camera and capture cards and all that stuff until you know if you like doing this and you can actually make a little bit of money on it.
Yeah, there was a ton of, not surprisingly, a ton of discussion about this on our Discord, and the analogy that I saw that kind of made sense to me is they likened streaming and making a shitload of money to making it in professional sports or as an actor.
It's very similar.
It's very similar in that like tons of people are trying to do it, but only a very tiny number will ever reach that top echelon.
Well, and even the people who are doing really well, like the people that are in the top couple hundred, like a lot of them are tied to a specific game. Like if you were a PUBG streamer in 2017 and you were medium popular, you'd have a couple of thousand people watching you at any given moment. And then PUBG kind of started to wane and people moved over to Fortnite and Apex and other games. And those audiences declined. So like if you are playing whatever the hot thing is at any given moment, if you're smart, you're grinding as hard as you can during that time to make as much money as you can, because when that game starts to fade, unless you can successfully transition to another game, which is kind of rare, you're going to see massively reduced earnings. Like when Ninja stopped playing Fortnite, Ninja's revenue went way down.
He was nowhere near as high on that list as I expected him to be.
Well, I think when he came back from Mixer,
there was also that. There
was stuff around that.
He probably had to rebuild a ton of audience after he had been off the platform for a while.
Yeah. So, but like, it's nice to be able to talk about the money. I think some people are like, I went into a bunch of channels like over the last few days to see how people are reacting. Some people are vehemently not talking about the money. Some people are being really open. Like there's the Twitch partner agreement basically says, hey, you can't talk about how much we pay you ever. Which is all out the window now, it seems like.
There's a lot of things about Twitch are out the window now. Like I wonder if any kind of like vulnerabilities will be discovered with that code base, or if there will be any downstream effects of having all that exposed. I
would guess that the Twitch engineering team has had a really busy week and it's not stopped now.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, the other thing to remember, especially about the people on the top 1,000, top 2,000, even everybody on that top 10,000 list should be able to be making money from sponsorships and stuff like that as well if they're hustling. So like the money that this thing showed is not the entirety of income, especially at the high end, but also especially at the low end. Like the nano and micro influencer scale folks. I can't believe I'm saying this, but like the people with a few thousand followers that are really heavily engaged should be making pretty good money if they're doing that, running that business in a smart and kind of ethical way. Because if you have good enough taste to build that kind of audience, then even a small one, then you endorsing a product should be worth something.
Yeah.
Like it's an interesting place to be as a business, I guess.
I heard that a few months ago from somebody I know who works in essentially in like high end alcohol production and like distilling and distribution and stuff. And they were talking to me about it because like I like whiskey. Yeah. And they were saying like, essentially like, working with these big influencers does not have the value that it used to, because like they don't, they're just literally just shilling the message. They don't care. Like these companies are starting to see way more value in people with smaller audiences, but actually like the product and like are knowledgeable about the subject and can talk about it from a place of authenticity.
Well, it's the thing we don't take ads here, but if we did, it would be like I really like Gruber's model for Daring Fireball, right? And his podcasts. he says, hey, there's 52 slots a year, one for each week of the year on his podcast and on the website. And it has to be something I like. I have to be able to use it, and it has to be something that I'm going to endorse, because I'm not going to take ad money from something that sucks. Yeah. So, you don't see as many mattress ads and male enhancement pills and stuff like that. You just see things that are actually products like I would endorse Nanotape. If the Nanotape people want to give us money for ads, I would, if they send it to me and it's good, I would 100% put Nanotape ads on the podcast for people who aren't paying us.
There's no brand name Nanotape. Unfortunately, there are 8,000 companies you've never heard of selling Nanotape, and they're all,
but I'm just saying as an example, like
if big Nanotape ever arises, we're here.
For me, somebody who's a new streamer who has a really engaged 500 person, like a small audience, and the people are like that's their number one streamer, I would much rather engage with them than I would with, I like Shroud. Shroud seems like an okay guy, but his audience is massive and broad and kind of disengaged.
I was going to say, point. I bet a lot of those ads just kind of roll right off their backs, right?
Yeah. They're used to seeing a bunch of ads. I'd much rather be the first person that advertises with a new streamer that helps them get off the ground than Shroud's 10 a.m. Thursday slot. So anyway, Twitch it's weird to be in one of these leaks. That's all I'm
sure it is. My condolences.
It's fine.
I'll be curious to see if we ever find out more about how this happened. I guess an error in a Twitch server configuration is at least specific enough to kind of have some picture of, like, when I first saw this, it made me think back to that massive Ubiquity breach from the beginning of the year.
Yeah.
Where, they were incredibly negligent about informing anyone, let alone, even their shareholders, let alone their customers, about what happened.
Yeah.
But the reporting coming out, and this was from Brian Krebs, who was a huge, very well-respected
on security,
security reporter and researcher. From that story, one of his sources said the attackers had access to privileged credentials that were previously stored in the LastPass account of a Ubiquity IT employee.
Jesus Christ.
And gained root administrator access to all Ubiquity AWS accounts.
That sounds great.
But that is just straight up human error. That's just like negligence. That's practically somebody putting their password in lubes.txt on their desktop.
So
not quite that.
Brad, are your passwords in lubes.txt?
No, they are not.
Good.
But I'm just saying like that is an example of just like one person probably did something
bad, less
secure than they should have, and it led to a whole bunch of trouble.
Well, so here's the thing. Here's the thing that is interesting to me about this whole, so we asked in the Facebook thing, did somebody get fired because of this? There were a couple of Reddit threads actually, but the one that I spent the most time in was a bunch of people who purported to be ex-Twitch employees and ex-Amazon employees who explicitly said there is not a culture of security and privacy at Twitch, right? Like there were multiple people saying, yeah, Twitch has never given a shit about this. It's no surprise. I'm surprised it hasn't happened yet.
Yeah.
Amazon, on the other hand, has always, of all the things that Amazon does badly, they're pretty good about customer privacy, right? You don't often see data breaches from Amazon because they've been going at this for long enough that if they weren't careful about that stuff, we would have had more leaks from them.
Yeah, that was an interesting point in that Verge story about this subject, is that Twitch, it sounds like Twitch has maintained a fair amount of autonomy in its own culture, its original culture, even after the buyout, because in terms of the technology stack that they employ and the services they are willing to adopt well before Amazon itself has vetted them and approved them.
Yeah. So I wonder if this is going to be a day of reckoning internally at Twitch around that stuff. I hope we see more information about what's happened here. I would describe this. A, I'm shocked that there hasn't been an email to all affected parties yet. B, I hope that there's more information. And C, just for full disclosure, I didn't actually look up my earnings to see if the numbers are accurate. I intentionally did not want to know that. So
okay, good to know.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a weird one too. Like this, I don't want to get too far off on this tangent, but like watching how this unfolded on social media. I definitely had a little moment of reservation about how the way information spreads about various subjects that is just being posted by people who are themselves very error prone, and how much
same thing happened with Facebook too, for what it's worth.
Like how fast bad misinformation can propagate. Like the first person I saw who got out there and posted a list of the earnings of the top like 20 or whatever, like that information was calculated. It was not just embedded in the leak. People had to do some math.
Yeah, you had to do a little bit of math.
And they had done the math incredibly incorrectly, like by an order of magnitude.
Yeah.
And so the first list that was going around was showing like the top couple streamers were making $30-40 million.
Yeah.
In that 2 year period. And that turned out to be off by a lot, but that spread very far before anybody realized it, like things like that, it's the whole Reddit detective thing of like trying to peg the Boston bombers and coming up with the wrong person.
The Zodiac or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. Like it's a little unsettling to see the way that information propagates about something like this these days. But
I also talked to a couple of friends who are mods at fairly big channels. And their reaction was really interesting because most of them were like, yeah, the people who are regulars could look at the number of subs because that's a public-ish number. Like you can find that and they can multiply that by a number and they know kind of what the ballpark is for these people. And they're happy to support them and let them keep doing this thing that they love because they like spending, like it's whether it's a Twitch Prime or $5 a month or whatever, it's nice to have a place to hang out on the internet. I mean, we all like, it's what we do in our Discord. It's what it's just differences of scale. Mm-hmm. And like, it's nice having a comfortable, familiar voice in your ears that you don't have ads while you listen to. Right. So let's talk about Windows 11.
Okay. Windows 11 came out, by the way, postscripts.
October 5th. The great October release continues. This is when Windows usually come out. It seems August to October is the window. And I was sitting there on Monday. I spent all day and my Windows graphics driver kept crashing. Mm-hmm. And I was like, man, it's time for me to reinstall Windows.
Hang on. What does a graphics driver crash look like?
The screen turns black for about 10 seconds and then turns back on.
Yuck. And do you get any kind of message?
You in the event viewer, yeah, it says, "Hey, your ng kernel dot whatever bombed out." And like just to be clear, this is a 5-year-old installed Windows, so it was getting kind of crufty.
I'm only like at 2 and change, and I'm feeling the itch badly at this point.
Yeah, it wasn't great. There's never a good time to reinstall Windows, like we said during the Windows reinstall episode earlier this year. Yeah. But I made it to October 4th. And I was like, I'm gonna download the ISO and install it right now. Mm-hmm. So I backed everything up. I pulled the other SSD and I was going to put on a secondary SATA SSD. And I was like, you know what? Fuck it. I don't want to have to do this twice. So I backed up the main SSD to my hard drive. That took like 6 hours and then wiped it and put everything on the main SSD impulsively at 8:00 at night. And by 3 a.m. in the morning, I had a more or less working Windows installed with all my stuff installed.
This was a fresh install, or you installed
clean
an upgrade install? Okay, good,
clean,
good,
brand new. Everything's fresh.
Good man.
Yeah, it's Windows.
It's Windows. But it's round now. It's very soft and rounded.
It is. I didn't run benchmarks. I didn't run before and after benchmarks. That stuff's out there.
Yeah,
I didn't. Because my install was busted, I didn't think it was worth spending the effort on a bad Windows 10 install versus a good Windows 11 install.
I think it's competitive, is my understanding in terms of performance. I think it's pretty similar.
It feels really fast. Like the UI feels like everything. Window movement feels fast. Even the stuff that felt kind of chunky on Windows 10, like I have a 4K monitor that's running at 150% resolution scale and a 1080p monitor that's running at 100% resolution scale, and usually moving those windows back and forth between those had a little bit of a chonk as it would go from the big size to the small size, and it just feels super smooth now.
That's
nice.
That's good, because UI scaling is something that Windows has been terrible at for a while.
I still don't think it's as good as OS 10, but also I have never used an OS 10 installed with multiple resolution scales, so I don't know how it handles it. The install process was fine. My computer already had TPM on, so it was pretty much ready to go. The official Microsoft tool that tells you if your PC is set up right is back online, so you can just download that. But there's also some third-party ones on GitHub if you want to grab those. The HDR and non-HDR shifting back and forth between seems to work reasonably well.
Is that a toggle? Is that something you trigger, or? So
there's a toggle in the Windows display property, like the place you change resolution and orientation of your monitors and stuff like that.
Will it will it HDR your entire desktop, the entire Windows 11 experience? It's not just a games thing.
It's just games and video.
Oh, it is. Okay.
So when you flip HDR on, at least on the monitor that I only have one HDR monitor, the other one is not. When I flip it on, everything gets a little black, like the black levels get a little blacker, even on like the desktop. I don't know why that is. Magic.
Auto.
But like I played some Far Cry the other night because it was what I had installed that supports HDR, and it was
bright and dark.
It gets real bright and dark now. Yeah, like when I look at the sun, the whole screen blows out. So that's kind of cool.
Okay.
It's still so I like you. I feel like HDR is of limited value to me because I don't want to have to turn it on and off every time I start streaming, because you kind of do.
Yeah. Yes, that we ran into that some last year when the new consoles came out. Especially the PS5 has a habit of when you change connections, HDMI connections, it'll reset all its settings, and one of those is turning HDR back on. So this didn't happen to me, but I know in several cases we lost recordings because the person did not realize that HDR had turned back on.
And everything was washed out.
That makes the recording basically unusable.
Oh, that sucks. You could just tone map that video back down. It turns out that's a completely non-trivial and incredibly time-consuming and high-skill thing to do.
I tried several months ago. I tried my hand at doing some manual tone mapping of a 4K Blu-ray rip, and man, it's hard.
Yeah, I went through this whole thing like 3 years ago with Blu-ray rips, and I was like, I'll just convert this 4K rip I made down to 1080p.
Yeah.
Nope. Just easier to rip a 1080p version, it turns out.
It looks like shit, it turns out. Plex has auto tone mapping now. I haven't tried it.
It took a long time, and it used to be endpoints dependent. So like you couldn't do it on Apple TV, but you could on Roku or whatever.
I believe that. I haven't tried it. I don't know how well it works, but because who wants to store a 4K Blu-ray rip?
That's so the other thing is the manual. It's hardware dependent. So like Apple TV 4Ks have tone mapping hardware built in that accelerate that. And so you could do the tone mapping on those from the beginning, but you couldn't on other endpoints. Now it works everywhere. I think. We have
a couple of professional colorists on our Discord that I've talked to about this a little bit. And like they were the ones who were like, you know what, just maybe let it go. Like this is a highly exacting process that requires a whole lot of technical know-how. Like people are paid to do this as a job. Like
it's not a thing you just do.
You're not going to run it through that FFmpeg filter and get a usable product. And sure enough, they were right. Yeah.
One does not simply tone map a 4K Blu-ray.
It's literally the movie that I was trying to do it to.
The taskbar
sucks.
So the center thing.
I haven't even used Windows 11, and I can tell you that all the changes are bullshit.
Wow, Brad.
Well, I see the usefulness of the center thing. Like, that's cool. What I'm talking about is that they have removed so many other options. Like, that's just...
Do you know what happens when you stop embracing change? Your brain gets less elastic and you start getting grumpier every day.
How about change and options? How about change and more possibilities are not mutually exclusive?
So look, if Windows...
You can offer new options and still maintain the old.
If this was a video game review, I would probably call it a mixed bag. The taskbar, it took me a couple of days. I'm getting used to it being in the center. I have been traditionally a left taskbar person, which means that the start button is in the far top left, and my mouse still goes up there fairly regularly. The things that I really, really like the new start menu. Like they have two sections to it. It's very straightforward now. There's a search at the top that you don't have to click into. Like if you hit the Windows key and just start typing, it searches through the apps on your computer.
Just the apps?
Well, see, this is where it always breaks down. I have a Google Chrome installer that is called Google Chrome Installer. And if I type Chrome, that almost always launches first. I deleted the installer and fixed the problem.
Okay, that is a start. It's not ideal.
There's the pinned apps, which we had on Windows 10. Then there was a bunch of nonsense that nobody ever used. And then there were a couple of recommended apps. And then there was the whole app list. You still have a button that takes you to the whole app list if you want. There's recommended apps now, which are like, it's like the Siri suggestions on iOS, where it looks at what you're doing at different times at that time of day and looks at your usage patterns and pulls some things from like your recent stuff and some things from your, like, I always use this at 10 o'clock in the morning when I log on for work and like all that, and then jams them into one block on the center of the screen. So they're easy to see when you hit that button. If you just want to, if you're a clicker. The pinned apps thing is surprisingly useful. I use it kind of on the reg, and I'm only putting stuff there that I actually use. So yeah, I'm generally speaking a fan of that.
Okay.
And it's nice and clean. You can also still right click on the start button to get like all the quick links to like event viewer and stuff like that.
Oh,
which is nice.
There is some stuff they've removed, like you can't expand. Remember was this pre 8? Maybe. I guess 7 was the last time they did this. Remember how the start menu or the taskbar used to be, where every app on there, every open app was a giant rectangle with the actual text label of what the window title was, and now they're all just icons.
No. Those were widgets. Those things were widgets.
I'm talking
before.
like Windows 95, like when the taskbar first debuted. Every open app was a giant rectangle down there with the full title.
Oh, yeah.
Like that's
instead of just the icon.
And now it's just icons. So I believe they have removed the ability to even expand running apps out to that rectangle to see what they're called at this point.
God, I didn't know that was still possible.
Yeah, I could do it right now on Windows 10. There's a lot of things I could do right now with the taskbar on Windows 10 that I could not do in Windows 11.
Well, just because you can doesn't mean you should.
You yourself are having to change your usage habits based on these limitations. Like, are you not
brain, Brad? Elastic brain.
Are you not irked by not being able to do the vertical taskbar anymore?
I'm the vertical taskbar is the one thing that hurts me.
That's what I'm saying. Like, look, give people options.
Look, sometimes to make an omelet, you got to break a vertical taskbar.
You know what else increases elasticity is trying a bunch of different things out and finding what works best for you.
So here is the thing. I'm sure if I wanted to bring the vertical taskbar back, I can install some janky shell extension and I would bring it back.
Yeah.
And then my UI would probably be broken for a little bit because some shit would not work right ever. Sometimes it's good to live with the defaults and see how it lays.
Dude, fucking their defaults are only defaults when there are options that are non-default you can switch to. When there's only one option, like
okay, yes, you're not wrong. I'm not disagreeing with you.
This Windows bullshit.
All I'm saying is, if I really wanted to get the vertical taskbar back, what I would do is turn the monitor portrait and alter the orientation, so then I have the same desk space used for the taskbar. And I just have to learn how to do everything in portrait, play video games in portraits.
It's just like a giant phone.
Yeah, exactly. There's a weird split between things you can and can't uninstall that are built into Windows. Like the nice thing is it didn't have a bunch of Candy Crush and all that nonsense pre-installed, which Windows 10 has had for a long time and continues to suck. But like you could uninstall Mail, Calendar, and Calculator, but you can't uninstall Camera, Maps, and the Tips app. So
okay,
like some of those are just built in, and some of them are just normal ass apps. I haven't engaged with how Windows has the multiple desktops, virtual desktops.
I started using it religiously as of work from home last year. I made a separate work desktop once my personal machine also became my work machine in March last year.
Yeah,
I made a separate work desktop, and it's fantastic to be able to quarantine all of that stuff.
Do you close the work desktop apps at the end of the workday, or do you just leave them running in the background?
Well, I turn my PC off at the end of. In fact,
if you want to go play a game or something,
this is a whole other episode topic. Ever since PG&E moved us to a time of use electric plan,
yeah, you just got to go full nocturnal.
It turns out turning off my PC at around 4:00 every day, if I can.
Huh? Weird.
Or 5, or as soon as I can after 4:00.
Yeah,
is to my benefit because it sure does cost a lot more to run the PC between the hours of 4 and 9.
Yeah, tell me about it.
But yes, generally I would get to like 6-ish every day and
close your work apps.
Usually close all the work apps and just forget about the desk. Like that was a nice mental model for getting away from work when I sat in the same place 12 hours a day. Mentally it's good for two things. Like when you're on your work desktop, it's a lot easier to just focus on the work stuff and not get distracted. It's also nice that there's a key combo. It's Control Option left and right arrow keys will just flip you between different desktops. So like I'm one keyboard shortcut away from taking a break from work for 10 minutes and just like flipping over to look at Discord or look at Twitter or something like that. But you can have those things quarantined in a way that it's easy to mentally get away from and come back to.
So my problem is a large part of my work is doing stuff on Steam and Discord.
Yes, that's
so I don't have good separation really.
That does become a little bit of a juggling act of I will literally have Discord open when I'm just chatting with friends on the personal desktop, And then the second I need to use it as for a work thing, it's like, well, I guess I need to move the Discord window over to the work desktop now.
Yeah. So anyway, I don't know. Like if I was an accountant and I was working in Excel and stuff like that all day, and then I went over to different stuff, then maybe it would be more useful.
I almost wish you could have different sets of desktop icons between desktops, like different files and everything.
Wait, do you leave stuff on you leave your desktop icons visible?
Dude. Yeah.
Oh, I turn them off.
I thought you were the king of like having a monitor full of icons.
Like 10 years ago, yeah. But once they gave the option to right click and go to view and turn all that shit off.
Oh, but you still have a ton of files on quote unquote desktop, just not visible.
It's a bucket of data, Brad.
I see. Why don't you just put them in a different folder then?
Because the desktop's the default.
Oh boy.
You just put everything in one space and it's easy to find.
I have currently got, didn't we just go through this?
Yeah, we talked about this a few weeks ago.
What do I need to deselect? Computer and recycle bin. How many items do I have? It doesn't, oh.
The only thing I have on my desktop right now are a bunch of shortcuts to recently installed games because they fucking keep installing those by default no matter what you do.
87 files, 39 directories on my desktop currently.
That's too many directories. Anyway, okay. I'm excited that like the multiple desktop thing so there's some icons that are built into the taskbar from the beginning that are just part of Windows, the start menu. There's a widgets tab that seems useless and bad, but nobody's built widgets for it yet, so I'm gonna withhold judgment for a little bit. There's a search button that is completely superfluous because typing something into the start, like hitting the Windows key and then typing something into the search button there does exactly the same thing as using the search icon. So I got rid of that one. And then the virtual desktop thing is the fourth one. So I'm excited that is no longer like a weird bastard stepchild feature in Windows and is like front and center. I want to know maybe they're going to do more with it.
I want to know what's different about it because I like it well enough in 10. I think it works for me. I'm curious what they've improved.
I kind of wish that they had multiple profiles. So like I wish that I could use that to switch between like my Will Work Windows account and my Will Home Windows account. You know what I mean? Like almost like a sign in, sign out situation.
I was just going to say you could probably just make multiple user profiles.
But I want it faster. I want a faster switch than that.
Actually, I wonder what is I only have one user account on this machine. I've never thought to make another one. I wonder like OS 10 does it pretty well. Like OS 10 lets you switch between running logged in user accounts like pretty snappily.
Yeah.
I don't know how Windows handles it. So that would be a solution there.
I do that because my daughter's PC has I'm the admin and she's the user. And like Steam uses the same install directory. It pulls from the same list of games that are installed, but you can log in with separate credentials on each account. So like she's logged in with her account. I'm logged in with my account. And that's the way most stuff seems to work. Like Firefox, her Firefox has its own login and profile and all that stuff. It works. I would say it works reasonably well to really well, depending on how weird your computer use is.
How fast is it to switch between running accounts?
It's like logging in and logging out. I mean, I guess you could do the switch active user, but her machine only has, I think it only has 8 gigs of memory. So I don't usually do that.
Okay. I
don't do the switch account. I do the log out, log in. The widgets right now seem to be just like a front end for Microsoft bullshit, Microsoft MSN bullshit. So that's not ideal. It seems like there's some widgets you can't remove. Like there's a bunch of top stories nonsense that it's like, I don't need to go to MSN ever again, it turns out.
Yeah.
Terminal's built in, which is awesome.
Yeah.
The focus is great. The focus assist thing. So this is like a feature that's come over from phones. It's actually pretty good. So you can set like different ways that you use the device. So you can set them based on time. You can set them on like when you're duplicating your display. You can set it on when you're playing a game. You can set it on when you're using a full screen app, and you can say, okay, I only want alarms. I want priority messages from these apps. I want nothing, which is awesome.
Yeah.
Because the notification service has been around in Windows long enough that apps actually use it. Like Teams uses it and Slack uses it and Discord uses it. And it's nice to be able to turn those notifications off on a system level. The control center thing that used to be there where you could put airplane mode on and turn on Bluetooth and all that stuff is now you get to it by clicking on the volume and network icon, which are like clumped up together. The for people who stream, the audio device management stuff is all redesigned.
Oh.
And theoretically, you can say, hey, I never, ever, ever want to use this particular output or input. So like when you plug in a new monitor, it doesn't get jacked up.
Oh, that sounds great.
Like that. Honestly, that's why I installed Windows 11 instead of like just putting in Windows 10 on this machine. In practice, it only works. I don't know. It's hard to say so far how well it works in practice because I'm still plugging in new devices often enough that like new things show up in the mix and it defaults to them. Like if you plug in a DualSense controller, then it's like, hey, there's a microphone, a speaker on this thing. You changed it.
Your sound is coming out of your controller now, whether you like it or not.
Yeah. But once I've said, hey, I don't want to hear from this monitor anymore, it hasn't tried to switch the sound to the monitor. So props for that. What else? The quick list from the start button is still there, which I love. I'm glad they didn't get rid of that. You can't right click on the taskbar and get to the task manager anymore. You have to Control Alt Delete or hit Windows key and type task manager.
Okay, well, I'll take it. I guess
non-optimal.
I guess I don't know. Yeah. Some questionable decisions in the UI realm.
Like I can't imagine the kind of UX decisions you make when you're building an OS that's used by everyone from like my parents to us, right? Like,
yeah,
it's being used by a broad swath of humanity. So I don't know. How do you make software for 1 billion people?
Yeah, but
right?
losing features and functionality is hard to swallow in any context.
Look, man, it's 30 years old. They have to lose features sometime or else it's just a giant, it's like cruft layered on cruft layered on cruft.
Yeah, but features that were in the one that you were using yesterday is a little bit harder to swallow.
Yeah, I know, but that task manager thing has been in since like Windows NT 4. It's a 20-year-old feature.
Task manager is very useful.
There's nothing for you and me. Yes,
there's nothing that duplicates its functionality. I need it.
No, I agree.
Whatever. I can hit Control Delete. It's fine.
The Teams built-in integration is really stupid, and it seems like they want me to have a Teams conversation with my wife and daughter, which I'm not interested in at all.
That's disgusting. It's not a family anymore. It's a team.
No, thank you. Also, the Teams integration that's built in won't talk to your corporate or school Teams accounts.
What?
So I couldn't log into my work Teams with the built-in client. I had to download the one with Office.
Dude, can you uninstall all of the Teams integration?
That's a good question. Let's see.
I hope so, because I will certainly.
Microsoft Teams. Let's see. That's a different icon. So there's a white background T and a purple background T. The purple background T. Yeah, I can uninstall the bad built-in one.
Great.
Wait, no. The purple one. Hold on. I don't know which one is which. Yeah, I can uninstall the white background one. Yes, that is correct. Okay. They hide search in the settings app, which is a fucking choice.
Wait, so, which search?
Like, you know how normally you'd open settings and there's a little bar at the top that you can type what setting you're looking for in?
You're talking about settings search, right? Like
settings search,
okay,
yes.
Because there's also file search, start menu search.
Yeah, no, settings search. In the settings app, if you want to search for like Wi-Fi settings, you open up settings and you type Wi-Fi and it just takes you right to Wi-Fi, right?
Yes,
you have to do 2 clicks because you have to click on the hamburger menu and then click into the settings.
I see. Okay, that's stupid.
You can also hit the Windows key and just type Wi-Fi and it takes you deep linked into settings, which is actually fine. Like once I realized that, I was fine with this. There's still some stuff that's a fucking nightmare to find with search. Like I can never figure out. In settings, yeah. Like I can never figure out how to change a network connection from a public network to a private network.
It's
like a 10-minute process the nice thing is I only do it once a year probably, but still.
Yeah. 6 years with Windows 10, I still have not fully learned that settings app and where everything is. And also how often I still end up back in original control panel.
So the thing I will say is I have not ended up in original control panel yet.
Okay.
There's still some stuff in there, I think. Let's see. I can still open the control panel app. It still looks just like it did in Windows 7. But now it's like there's system and security. Oh, that's a lie. I did have to go in there to get access to the image of my old hard drive backup. Because that backup and restore client from Windows 7 is still hey, you have an image backup of your hard drive and you want to see where it is.
Yeah.
I think that's overall pretty good. I don't think it's necessary.
Yeah, I certainly don't plan to upgrade anytime soon. Not that I could, because my CPU is not even on the supported list.
I was going to say, if you install it, you want to make sure, especially if you play games, to turn off the virtualization security stuff.
Oh,
because it has a pretty substantial performance impact.
Wait, really? I thought that was one of the big selling points of Windows 11 was how much more secure it was because of that thing.
Yeah, but I mean, you want those 10, 12 frames a second in your games?
Hell no.
Turn it off.
Well, then that's even less reason to upgrade to Windows 11.
Brad, I don't know if you were aware of this. The windows are curved.
Fuck, dude, I hate that. Corners. I hate that. I despise curved anything.
So the good news is that when you clump them, so there's two things that they did that I really love in the taskbar stuff. You know how you do the thing where you smash a window into the right side of the monitor, and you smash another window in the left side of the monitor?
Yeah, like, they've improved that stuff, right?
They've made it. It's fucking awesome.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Like when you highlight one of your taskbar icons that's in one of those, they treat those as groups now. So like if I have Firefox and Chrome in those blocks right now. And when I highlight mouse over the Firefox icon, it shows a group with Firefox and Chrome, and I can mouse into that group rather than just the individual windows now too, which is rad. And those windows are still square. So when you smash them up against the sides, they're square windows. You can get your hard corners on.
Yeah. You know what? I've got all the hard corners I can possibly eat here in Windows 10.
Nothing's broken. Like everything's worked.
That's good. That's a start. Well, because you have an Intel CPU, that's the case. Did you see this Ryzen bug?
Yeah, the 10% performance thing.
This is the L3 cache, or I don't know if it's L3 cache. Some part of the CPU cache was not being used properly on Ryzen's, and it was causing I saw like up to 20% performance delta from Windows 10.
Oops,
which is rough.
How do you fuck that up? It's been in beta for a year.
I don't know. I'm going to soapbox about the one thing that I'm really angry about with Windows 11.
What are you really angry about, Brad?
Which is that they have arbitrarily chosen to lock WSLG up in Windows 11.
What's WSLG, Brad?
It's the subsystem. So Windows Subsystem for Linux debuted on Windows 10. It's the full Linux virtualized environment, right?
Yeah.
G is the thing that lets you do X11 and Wayland, like Linux GUI apps.
Oh God, don't do that. Nobody wants Linux GUI apps.
But some people buy.
I'm rolling back to Windows 10 now. Screw this.
It also, well, fucking whatever. It's stupid as hell because they tested that feature on Windows 10 for the last year. Like literally their GitHub is full of people just like furious that they're like, hey, I was helping you test this thing on Windows 10 for the last year. And now you're telling me I have to upgrade to Windows 11 to actually use it. Like that sucks. Like that's terrible.
It does.
Also, the thing I didn't realize about it is it's not just literally running Linux GUI apps. It's also the thing that lets WSL access the GPU at all. So
you can't do like CL CUDA stuff?
If you're doing stuff like PyTorch and TensorFlow, machine learning stuff that hits the machine learning hardware on your Ampere card, you can't do that either without Windows 11, and that sucks.
Yeah, that's not okay.
And it's purely an arbitrary just you should upgrade to get this thing. There's no reason that they had to do that.
So there's stuff that's not in that's big, that are big headline features, like the Android app support isn't in yet, stuff like that.
It took me a second to parse that. Did you just say the Android app stuff didn't make a launch?
I don't believe it made launch.
That was their one more thing from the announcement presentation. Like that was their thing they made the biggest deal out of.
Oh, yeah. Windows 11 doesn't support apps at launch according to Digital Trends.
That's bizarre.
But you can just run. This is a story about how to use normal Android emulators. The other thing I noticed that's a bummer, I tried to use Winget to set up this machine by getting like Spotify and Discord and all the stuff I normally install, the little stuff. And it seems like Winget is getting full of crap now, which is a huge bummer. Like I did Winget install Discord, and then I got two options, one of which is an HP Omen like bundle of tools of gamer shit.
That's gross.
And the secondary response is the Discord app. And I couldn't even figure out how to parse that command line to get just the package I wanted, because the package ID is discord.discord, which Winget didn't parse properly.
Yes, I saw that.
The same thing happened with Spotify, except for the thing that popped up with Spotify looked like actual malware, which was super bad.
Yes, I saw that as well.
Microsoft Store.
Mm-hmm.
I hope that this is I was so excited about the ability to install, it would be so nice to just have a flat text file of all the shit you install when you install Windows. and just pull that stuff down from Winget and have it be clean and not have to worry about it?
It sure would.
And if they fuck that up already, I'm going to be really sad.
Yeah. So yeah, package managers live and die by the quality of their software repositories. And if they have gotten that wrong, then this thing is functionally useless.
I mean, Chocolatey still works.
It's Chocolate's decent. It's
fine.
It's not as good as what you find on a Linux or a BSD, but
no,
it mostly does the job.
Well, I also, with Chocolatey being third party, I worry about the possibility of stuff getting jacked up in that too, because you are giving there's a level of trust.
I've even run into situations where I pulled something off of Chocolatey that tripped Windows Defender.
Oh, that's always good.
And I had to go to the repo or the page for that specific thing on Chocolatey and find a bunch of people saying like, no, don't worry about it. It's part of the build. The build process for this particular app causes false positives with Windows Defender. It's fine. And like, you have to trust that they're on the up and up.
I don't
in
like
cases like
that stuff.
like it's just. I mean, Windows is not a command line centric operating system like the Unixes are. So
but wouldn't it be nice if it was?
I sure would. I would love that. How weird, how full circle is that I remember when Windows 95 came out and you felt gross every time you saw a little DOS window pop up or you had to run something in DOS mode?
I never really felt that way. I always liked DOS, but
for years, I wanted to get completely away from any kind of console window or anything like that. And now here we are.
Yeah, indeed.
All right. Windows 11, don't upgrade unless you want to.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's fine if you want to upgrade. It's also fine if you don't. It'll come eventually.
Yeah, you've got 4 years before Windows 10 stops getting updates.
I am having trouble logging into our Patreon account.
Oh, good. Okay. Well, should I fill here and say? So I don't know if you saw they relaxed the CPU requirements, kind of.
Oh, really? So you don't have to have TPM?
Well. No, I don't think this was around TPM. I think it was around the virtualization stuff in the CPUs. Remember, they were saying like before 7th gen, or I think 7th gen and earlier Intel was not eligible.
Okay.
You can force the install with the ISO on those CPUs, but if I understand correctly, they are not going to give you updates. Like they are disabling automatic updates on installs like that. If I understood correctly, so maybe don't do that if your CPU is not officially supported.
It seems like. Okay, there's two things. One is definitely don't try to buy a TPM module right now if your computer doesn't have one, because they're incredibly overpriced.
Mm-hmm.
So just like it's worth waiting, because they're usually like between $10 and $20. And right now, when I looked last time, they were going for 50 or 60. I think somebody in the Discord even said they tried to buy one, and it like the person canceled the order and changed it. Said, hey, we're out of stock. And then they had them on the store again at 3 times the price. So something to consider.
Yeah. I would say maybe just don't upgrade until you get a modern system. If your system is on the bubble like mine is, maybe just commit to that being a Windows 10 system and wait until you have newer hardware.
I think usually I don't like. Windows generally will run on pretty much anything that the last generation system will run on. I think in this case, it might be worth waiting. Yeah. I think you're right.
Yeah.
The other thing is make sure. So the other thing is we talked about this a little bit at the beginning, but the upgrade process that Microsoft uses for major upgrades to Windows now is pretty good in that they have a large supply of beta and dev, like 2 rings of testers ahead of the normal install. They usually don't offer a normal user the opportunity to install until they're reasonably sure that your particular configuration, like nobody's hardware configurations are unique anymore.
Yeah.
If they're not sure your hardware won't, if you're in the normal ring for Windows groups, you won't see the prompt to upgrade to Windows 11 until they're pretty sure you're good.
Yeah.
So once you get that, you're pretty safe. If you go out on your own, you download the ISO and you install it yourself, who knows what weird shit in your computer won't work.
That is why I stopped forcing even their semi-annual updates, the feature updates, the 20H1 and so forth. Like I stopped even forcing those until they actually serve it to me, because it's the same thing there, right? Of like, there's something in your config that might break if you update now, so we're not giving it to you.
And they look at both hardware and software installs for that.
Yeah.
So like when I had the wireless Vive headset card in my machine, that would hold me for months on updates because the drivers for that thing always lagged. So just like in this case, sometimes it's okay to trust Microsoft. about upgrading your Windows. Don't do it for other stuff.
Sometimes.
Brad, this is the portion of the show. It was my ad blocker, by the way. It was preventing me from logging into Patreon because I hadn't turned it off for Patreon on this machine yet. This is the portion of the show where we thank our beloved patrons.
Yeah, thank you, patrons.
Thank you, patrons. As always, if you would like to support the 100% listener-supported Tech Pod, you can by going to patreon.com/techpod. That's patreon.com/techpod, where for as little as $2 a month, you can gain access to the fabulous Tech Pod Discord.
Fabulous is the word I would use, in fact.
It is. Look, I'm in a lot of Discords. Don't tell the other ones, but this one's the best.
I won't say anything.
I mean, the one that Gina, I'm going to be in trouble if Gina hears this.
Oh.
But no, we have great talks with the thread experiment. I think is going pretty well.
Yes, Threads turns out mostly yes. I would say I have missed a couple things like on the Twitch leak, for example. Was it Twitch or maybe it was I think it was the Facebook thing.
There was a Facebook thread.
That was it. It was that I was kind of looking around on the Discord for the Facebook discussion, and I found some, and I assumed that was all there was, and then I found out that there was a thread I had missed, and that actually had like 10 times more conversation.
There was an infinity of Discord conversation. People were sharing. Yeah. You kind of have to keep up with threads. You have to sort of keep on top of what's active, but I see the value. I would say the experiment is going well. I'm still not 100% convinced, but we have, I think, 2 Canadians, an American, and a Swede in charge of in Thread Club right now. So it's a very diverse group.
Yes.
Let's see. I'm getting ready to change over the looking for group channel for the games section so that people can opt into that and get notifications. So if you want to get notifications when people are looking for people to play games with, go to the rules channel.
That sounds cool.
Yeah. And click an emote is what you're going to have to do.
Yeah, that would be great.
To join that.
Actually.
And yeah, if you want to jump in there again, it's patreon.com/techpod. It says $2 a month gets you the access to the Discord. For $5, you get our monthly patron exclusive episode where usually we answer more questions.
Mm-hmm. Well, lately, that episode has been all kinds of things.
We had a person who takes pictures on Mars on there once. We had an electronics expert. We had we do patron spotlights occasionly. Yeah, we plan sometimes.
We read our old Usenet history.
Yeah, why did I have to read my old magazine bullshit on the main podcast feed, and you read your Usenet history on the secret feed?
Somebody's got to go first.
And as always, we want to thank all of our patrons, but especially our executive producer tier patrons, including Paddle Creek Games, makers of Fractured Veil, Andrew Slosky, The Bunny Fiend, Jacob Chappell, Joel Krauska, Twinkle Twinkie, David Allen, and James Kamek. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
And if you don't have $2 a month to chuck toward the Patreon, we get it. Times are weird.
Yeah.
Tell a friend. That's all we ask.
Spread the word.
Let somebody know that this is a good podcast because we're bad at marketing.
Yeah. Install a bunch of other podcast apps and download the podcast again and again.
Wait, that doesn't cost us money, right? What? Just look. Write a nice card for a friend. Like make a like you can take some construction paper. Make a little stencil, put some glue on there with a little bit of glitter.
Yeah.
Maybe not glitter if the person doesn't like glitter. And write, hey, there's this great podcast I thought you might love.
There you go.
It's called Brad and Will Made a Tech Pod.
Get some purple construction paper and some yellow construction paper.
Yeah, you can find it at techpod.content.town. And then share the posts with us on Twitter because I would love to see the cards that you make to tell your friends about this amazing podcast. But we'll be back next week, I guess.
You guess.
Well, I mean, look, you never know. It could be an asteroid or something.
Boy. All right, let's get out of here.
Bye, everybody.